Shabbat, Shabbat, come home and rest. Shabbat, Shabbat, Yahowah's best. Lay down the weak, let your soul be free. Shabbat, Shabbat, come back to me. 6 days we work, then we bask. We leave the noise to hear Yah's voice. We listen, we learn, we struggle to know. We walk with Yah through the Nakry. Shabbat, Shabbat, come home and rest. Shabbat, Shabbat, Yahowah's best. Lay down the weak, let your soul be free. Shabbat, Shabbat, come back to me.
Oh, that's like we're all just swaying back and forth. Love the beat. It is Shabbat. Well, just moments from being Shabbat here in the Caribbean Sea. It'll be Shabbat for the rest of you a little later as the sun sets, but it is already Shabbat in Israel, so we can celebrate it nevertheless. It's good to see you all. It's I guess we're now officially on our rotation, so that every other week we have a crew and different each time. Today, I think we actually have the Invisible Man, too. Is that correct? Can the Invisible Man hear us and speak at this point?
Yes. Shabbat Shalom, Havarim, and family. Today is the anniversary of the 6 Days War. But if you ask me, Israel's been at war with Yah for 2,700 years.
Why are you shorting it to 2,700 years? I think Israel has been at war with Yah for 3,400 and almost 50 years at this point.
They
Val.
won.
There you go. There we go. 3,450. Thank you for the correction.
Well, I wish that Israel wasn't at war with Yahweh, that they have been at war with Muslims for 14 centuries, not their fault. Well, it was their fault. They created the Quran. It was rabbis that told Muhammad those stories that became the Quran. So they created the religion, and they have been victim to Christianity, which has been the most anti-Semitic religion of all time for 18, going on 19 centuries now. And that was also a product of Judaism. Jews got very confused as to who the Messiah is, who the Son of God is, who Yahweh is, when Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim were scheduled to be fulfilled, and they just butchered the whole thing. Dowd came, did what he promised, fulfilled Passover, unyeasted bread, and firstborn children, and they didn't notice. And so when Paul came up with his fake Messiah, they were not prepared to rebut him. And as a result, he came up with a religion where Jews were the enemy. He said, Jews have schemed to kill my God. Oh, my goodness. Can you imagine that? Men dastardly enough to kill God. And people believe it. And the whole story just continues to tumble downhill from that part. Kevin, I understand that we have a revised and safe YouTube friendly Mr. Babylon. So it's we had a version that John Voight did a while ago, while it was, I thought, just fine. The fact is that YouTube will manifest all manner of lies against Jews and have no compunction about it. But if you show any material, even if it's to discourage terrorism and violence, in this case, showing what happened on 10/7 so that it's not repeated and we know who to hold accountable, they won't tolerate that. So it's a pretty screwed up algorithm. In fact, I understand they even have had a conniption fit over my song, which is a rebuttal to Allah. It is pure sarcasm. It's sarcasm is humor, in case the folks that run YouTube don't know that. But Allah had a dare, and he says that no one will ever be able to create a surah or a suratan, as it is stated, that compares to his, and said, so try as you might, you will never have a better one. And I took up the challenge, Quranic and all, and whooped his little behind.
I would say so.
It is much funnier, much zippier. It has a better turn of phrase, better rhymes, better rhythm than anything he wrote. And I even did it with pure sarcasm, which is I took all the points that he tried to make and I made fun of his points. So to say that is in violation of their rules says that, YouTube is the no fun club. We cannot have intellectual humor. Sarcasm is not allowed. And poetry, that must be a really bad thing, because the scariest thing on that graphically, we have dancing skeletons. Now, if we're going to ban dancing skeletons, then I guess we're going to have to, ban Halloween too, which wouldn't bother me at all. But nevertheless, I didn't even bother to respond to them. It just, how do you have a conversation with a robot AI that has not been schooled on humor?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a complete waste of time of our time to try to battle back with them. Yeah.
Yep. So anyway, we have a new Mr. Babylon. Mr. Babylon is Donald J. Trump. In case you are not aware, Donald Trump is the person who we identified 2 years ago, saying that he was the Torahless one, that he is the great betrayer of Israel, and that he now we know him as Rahab. We did a whole series called Antichrist, not because of the fact that there is an Antichrist, because there was no Christ, but that's the term that he is known by, the Satan incarnate during the last days. So we used it to because it will resonate with people and identifying him as the Antichrist, and did it 2 years ago. But if you can go back almost, probably 15 years, maybe 20, that I was able to identify from Yasha'yah 17 and 18, that it would be the President of the United States of America, who at this time, during the fulfillment of Shabuw'ah, 7 years before the return of the Messiah with Yahowah, with Dowd, would be the one who betrays Israel. Mm-hmm. And they would do so ultimately by affirming the two-state dissolution, or the final solution against Israel. And that was deduced from Yasha'yah, Isaiah 17 and 18. So we've been on this now for, Mike, you probably edited it upwards 15 to 20 years ago that we did our first pass through Isaiah 17 and 18, where it became obvious that it's going to be the United States president. It's going to be the great betrayer of Israel, and that president's going to emerge at this time. And we just didn't know who that was going to be until this most recent election, and then announced the night of the election, Donald Trump is the person that Christians know as the Antichrist. He is Satan incarnate. And we've subsequently proven the point. That's that nod means yes, I think. And we have video capability here, so there we are. Mike is the guy in the lower left there, and that was the nod means yeah. We have the invisible man that can speak, and we have the visible man that can't. So we have working on it to merge the two. Balance this evening. We also have the disappearing man, which would be Will. There he is, and the reappearing man. So we have a full cadre of characters, even a husband and wife, and that's pretty amazing for covenant families. How are you guys this evening?
We're good.
Good. Yeah, excellent. Good to have you back. All right, so if you wouldn't mind, let's play Mr. Babylon. It's done in reggae form. It was written by Leah. The graphics are by John. It is it's a marvelous tune. It's seriously fun. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Did it do ba da come so ay oh. Oh Babylon, yeah. Did it do ba da come so ay oh. Oh Babylon, You beast, your bitch holding them down in the ditch. Your once children, you turn to pitch. Your feast, your scribes, your priests, your imams, your rabbi, they do lie. Getting high on that narcissistic supply. Stop your wars and you Capricorn. Come on, well. Babylon cause all the problems. They make the wars, but you don't know how to solve them. Oh no, you don't, no. Liars make all them trouble. Oh, they make the wars make you look. No, but don't know how to solve them. Oh no, yeah. No. Oh yeah, you got your devils to fly overhead and drop your bombs upon the innocent. Well, that stuff he says, oh Babylon, let me tell you, Mr. Babylon, war is not our solution. We want you in dissolution. War and strife is not the solution. Never was, never will be. So Mr. Babylon, the copper can up yours. Babylon cause all them troubles. Oh yeah, how are you told us? Oh yes you did. They make the wars, they make them deals with those that hater. They gonna ravage her, that's cat Babylon. Oh yeah. Oh Babylon, you be doom. Systems make all the problems. Chewing up them innocent to their problems. They got no solution. They bury their minds in some new potion. Them pray to a God that cannot save them, all going down to the grave. Oh no. Let me tell you, war is not our solution. Religion is not our solution. War, religion and strife is not the solution. Never was, never will be. So global sheriff mashing down the earth with your iron fist. You the clown. Global sheriff messing around, killing his own, taking bribes, grabbing kitty and coming with a fool's philosophy. You think that war gonna bring you peace prize? Why don't you just steal one? Let me tell you now, oh Mr. Babylon, blood dripping down your hair now, blood dripping down your collar now, blood running down your hands, blood running down your streets. Babylon cause all them troubles. Oh yeah, how are you told us? Oh yes you did. They make the wars, they make them deals with those that hate her. They're gonna ravage her, that's cat Babylon. Oh yeah. Oh Babylon, you be doom. Babylon a cause all the problems. They make them wars fly those drones. Babylon a cause all the problems, but them don't know how to solve them. Oh yeah. Babylon make all them troubles, suffering the unthinking masses. To their problems they got no solution. No. Oh yeah, Babylon a cause all the problems. Yeah. Stop the children are making more wars. Hey warmonger, stop your war. You gonna kill us all. Oh yeah. Oh no.
The Asher is the mix master at the end. It's just too precious. That was a presentation of Fulashidicus. He is the man who is trying to create the Fourth Reich. He is Der Fuhrer. He is Rahab, which is the term that Yahweh uses to describe the person that Christians know as the Antichrist. God doesn't have a Christ, so he has a Rahab. And he is the egomaniacal, narcissistic, sadistic, demon-possessed political coppercon that we know as Donald Trump. So as you have witnessed him speak and act since the time that we first announced that He is the one that everyone has been awaiting. He is Satan incarnate. What do you all think? You have a reaction to it? Do you think it's that claim that I've made going back now in November of 2 years ago was accurate, or do you think that the jury's still out?
Very accurate.
It's just becoming more and more clear. It's becoming more belligerent and just, it's no question.
And just nuts.
It is nuts, isn't it? It's, the statements that come out of his mouth and how out of tune he is with reality. It seems to me like it's pretty cut and dry and real. The only thing we ever had any concern about was, he's an old fart. And even though the prophets say, particularly Gabriel tells us when he was speaking through Daniel, he said that, he's going to be long in days and he's going to come back in a flaming wheelchair. Not come back. He's going to end his days in a flaming wheelchair. Probably because of the bone spurs, Don't
catch up with them.
Goatish comb over hair. Ezekiel calls him the Coppercon. So
the great confabulators.
The great the great confabulator. Well, we're laughing at him, and not because we're libertards, because I don't think it's a libertard in the group here. We're anti-political, so we're not coming at him as people from the other side of the aisle. As for me, I'm way too conservative to be a Republican, so it certainly isn't my preference to pick on the the MAGA-ite, but you have to call it as it is, and that's the job, is to expose the negative influences in our societies. And when the prophets speak, they are never wrong, and they have congealed around a singular individual that they say is going to be the great betrayer of Israel, and he is Donald J. Trump. It's quite a song.
Yeah.
Yada. I think that your conclusions and assessment are irrefutable and unequivocal. And I do think he has a career, though, as a builder at the RBR in Sheol, the Rahab Black Hole Resort.
Yeah. It's a shame for him, though, that normally he likes naming rights. And that's the big deal in Ezekiel. The last third of the book of Ezekiel has the Coppercon measuring up this grand edifice that's going to bear Satan's name, as Satan claims to be a god through Trump. And it's all about him measuring up this great real estate development project. And that's the last third of Ezekiel. And but when it comes to Sheol, which is the actual name of hell, Trump doesn't get naming rights. His predecessor, the man who he resembles more than any other, which would be Paul. Paul is the fellow that created the myth of Jesus and attacked God and became demon-possessed, so he's in the same ilk. But hell is named Sheol, which is named after Paul. It's his actual given name. So Donald's going to have to get comfortable, not being the top draw. He's going to be the single worst person who ever lived, so he'll get that. He's got that going for him. But he doesn't get naming rights in hell. The primary author of the Christian New Testament. Can you imagine that? The guy that wrote the first 14 books of the Christian New Testament and responsible for the next 3, which would be Mark, Luke, and Acts, that man, the inventor of Jesus, a fraud, the ultimate con, he is the fellow that hell was named after.
Yeah,
that's not so good if you're a Christian, is it?
Who'd have thunk it?
No,
Two people.
No, not very flattering.
Hasatan, facepalm.
What I would like to do is, if you can set it up before we go into our program for this evening, and that I understand Mariah is the one who did most of the graphics for the song we played last week, the Journeyman song that has all of the motorcycle scenes. Yes.
Oh, Luminaries.
Luminaries is the motorcycle one. Okay.
Luminaries. Yeah, Luminaries. That was you that did most of that, correct?
Oh, yeah. A lot of it's Canva footage, B-roll. You know, you just select different ones that are already in there and then drop them in where you want them.
Yeah, good. Kevin is, though, enamored with it. Kevin thinks it's the best that we have done. I like it a lot, but
it's the motorcycle.
I would. You do have it, so you can tee it up, correct, Kevin?
Whenever you're ready, yeah, I can play Luminary.
Okay.
Sure.
Oh, man.
So what I would like is since you chose the backgrounds for it, before we play it, why don't you share with us what it was about the song that drew you to create the graphics that you did? Because my view is that a song, when it's done the way we're doing them, communicates on many levels. You've got the lyrics, you have the melody, you have the voice, and you have these very inspiring graphics that draw you through the story. And I think that they are all equally important, not one above the other, so that you're actually telling a story with the images that we're watching. So why did you choose those images, and what were you trying to convey to reinforce that story in the Luminaries?
Wow. Okay. The traveling the path. So the luminaries light up the way, and it's kind of a guy on a search, right? Like, so there's that first image of the shepherd and the sheep and the fog that's referenced in the beginning of lyrics, and then it goes into a journey, and it's like a guy searching for the truth, for what the luminaries are showing, right? And you see him coming out of Babylon and going towards Sion, and you see you see Yada, and you see Dowd, and then there's the Towrah in the end, and then he comes home, and there's the tree and the life, and he's coming home to his love, and then they're joined together, and the song ends. And then there's obviously you and Leah and Dowd in there, and the lions, and
all the
trying to drop in as much as I can.
All the wonderful symbols. For those who do not know, and I would assume that most people who are listening to this program know, because this is going to be a luminary series here on Family Hour, is that the first prophecy that Yahowah shares is about the two luminaries. It's in the first chapter of Bereshit Genesis. There's nothing created on the fourth day. The entire story of the fourth day is the narrative on these two luminaries. It doesn't mention the sun or the moon, and says nothing about anything being created. It is about the greater and lesser luminaries, both of which God says are wonderful from his point of view, great. But they serve this Gadol and Katan Meoreth. They serve as the oath, as the consensual signs. And oath means to consent, to agree, to do something, and a sign is a representation of something. And they are the consensual representation of the Moedim. And the Moedim are the 7 steps that we can walk. We're invited to pursue, to leave this world and enter God's, to migrate from 3 dimensions to 7 dimensions, to walk out of the darkness into the light. And so God's message is that the lesser and younger luminary reflects the greater luminary's light, so that he can be known and that we can enjoy coming to know God and have a relationship with him. That's the purpose of the story. And yes, you will see that there are trees in the story, because the greater and lesser luminaries are also presented as the 2 trees in the Garden of Eden. They are the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and the tree of lives, both of which are essential, and both of which reappear as we come full circle on Sukah and are invited back into the garden. But those 2 luminaries, and that's what this series we're sharing is all about, are discussed in prophecy as the sun and the moon, not with the sun and the moon being referred to as our actual sun or actual moon. When it talks about a bloody moon, it means that Katan Meor, the lesser luminary, is going to get beaten up at the end. He's going to become bloody. That's why he's called the Adamah bloody red man of the earth, Parah, bull, who was productive. And the greater luminary, when it talks about him, he's returning as the sun, as brilliant as the sun in God's presence. So it's important to know that that's what God is talking about in those prophetic references. But it's also true, and that's what it's so interesting. And I know that Kevin wanted to do a show on it this evening. We just really don't know how to jump into it and jump out of where we are into it, because it's part of this luminary series. That the story of Noach, and particularly his son Shem, happens to be the same story. It's the story of the luminaries. Because Adam had 6 lives. He's been redeployed, will be redeployed by the time it's all over 6 times. And his Adam, who is the firstborn, is actually Dowd. And he returns as Noach's son Shem, of course, because he's the name of names. Even God tells us in the 89th Mizmor, I'm going to give you a name that's greater and above all names. And he, as Noach's son, makes many appearances even during that life. And I have deduced them, and we're going to share them. It's really an interesting story. But he, of course, returns ever so briefly as Eldod, which is God's beloved. And then he becomes Dowd, the shepherd boy who is the chosen one, anointed as the Messiah, proclaimed the firstborn son of God, becomes the king of Israel. And he, wrote about his return to fulfill Chag Matzah, Pesach Matzah, and Bakodim, and he returns again as our king. But he very seldom appears alone. And there's always somebody reflecting his life, affirming him, standing up for him, protecting him, advocating for him, trying to keep him focused, serving as really a father for him, and this man's wife as a mother for him. And you find them in Noach and his wife with Dowd above the Tabah, this vessel for insights. And you find them in the greatest love story in the Torah, which is the story of Ruth and Boaz. Now, the thing that I love so much about that story is that God, for a number of reasons, has chosen mostly to speak through men. But it's a woman who has the greatest line in all of the Torah and prophets, and it's a woman who heralds the most profound prophecy. Ruth's line, where you go, I go. Your people are my people. Your God is my God. It is the best line ever in the entire story. And her love story, particularly when you go from things didn't work out so well. She was really down and out, and she never got depressed. She realized that the best way to solve what should have been depressing is to care about somebody else. And she put all of her love and support into Naomi, her mother-in-law. And then as they came to Babylon, she had a hankering for a particular guy. His name was Boaz. And Boaz is one of the more interesting characters in the entire story, and their love story, and how she then tells him, I am your Amah. That means I'm the protective mother. And I'm going to deliver to you, Boaz, the kinsman redeemer. And she did 4 times. 4 times. She was the great-grandmother of Dowd. In that situation, the greatest love story ever told. She would come back as the wife, the Amah, with her husband, to try to salvage Dowd, restore the kinsman redeemer when he was really down and out and had no relationship anymore with Yahowah. They were not on speaking terms. And she got his attention. And it is amazing the parallels of the stories of Noach, and then with the last word picture and what she has to say to Dowd. And she would then come back as Ruth with her husband Boaz, and they are the mother and father of Emmanuel, of Dowd, when he is prepared to serve as the Pesach El, fulfilling Passover, Matzah and Bekurim, and that's the toughest role anybody could possibly have.
Yeah.
And she comes back again a fourth time to redeem Dowd. And that is the life that we're living now, because had it not been for this life, no one would know him. He's been forgotten. So our job is to restore his reputation. And so it's just a really interesting story of the luminaries as they are deployed throughout time by Yahowah, because the other part of that equation is the other luminary is Chanowk. And Chanowk becomes Noach. And Noach lives all the way to, he's one of the two witnesses along with Shem on the trip up to Moreh with Abraham and Ishak. They're also the two that accompany Yahowah when he meets with Abraham and Sarah, and they have the cheeseburgers and talk about what the future is going to be and how she's going to have a son. And then then those two fellows, they go and take care of business in Sodom. That's same soul. And he then returns as my Dowd during the time that Moshe is having a meltdown to support Moshe. And he returns as Boaz. And that is the story that is most central to God's plan, the greatest example of the covenant. And then they return when Dowd's in a mess. And what is the Amah that gets Dowd's attention with the last Mashal, the 31st proverb? The hammer comes from Ethan Rocky, who is that next iteration of Chanowk, who became Noach, who is my Dowd, who is Boaz. And he delivers the 89th Mizmor. It's I think the most important piece of literature ever written. And they return briefly, Dowd and Yada, as Gabriel and Michael. That's the prophecy that unlocks all of time. That's the prophecy that tells us who Rahab is, delivered by the same two guys. Now they don't live a full life. Then they just go in, they tell the story, get it written down, leave. But then they would return 600 years later, the 550 years later, and it is Ruth and Boaz who give birth to Emmanuel, who is Dowd, as he prepares to serve, to fulfill Pesach, Matzah, and Bekurim. And they don't just, hey, Kit, been nice. We did the best we could, but, you're on your own now. And ain't the way it happened. They were there with him every step of the way. That was the roughest duty probably in the history of what God has asked someone to do. Yeah. And back again, this time, Yada and Leah, the Bashar, the herald. And so those are the luminaries. And when it comes to the lions that you mentioned, that was the last bit that you mentioned, so I'll share that as well. But what we learn in Yasha'yah 30, previous to what we're going to dive back into, is that it's a white lioness and a white lion, two people that, man and woman, that God thinks have a mighty roar, ferocious, and they're the ones that tear Rahab down. They're the ones that bring the great betrayer, Satan incarnate, down.
Yes.
So that's God's story, and he's sticking with it. I'd encourage everybody to join in and benefit from it, but that's God's story. And it's, I just think it's so much more reaffirming when you know that God has favorites too, and he doesn't take chances. And so if it's a really prickly situation, like he's about ready to wipe out Nasalma man and humankind in this planet, it wasn't just some random dude that he said, I want you to build a temple. It was the one that he chose and trusted. It was Noach, who was Chanowk. And so that's what God has done all the way through. He didn't go to an 8-year-old shepherd boy that he had never met out there in Bethlehem and say, this is my chosen one. I'm going to go all in with this boy. No. He knew him from multiple lives prior to that time. All right, Mariah, I've done even more introduction to your story than you did to your story, but I tried to pick up on all your clues. You know, I noticed that it's pretty common with everybody that's in the covenant is that we have our own lingo. So you will talk about the fact that, you know, I show the trees in the end, and I show the white lions, and I show Yada and you know, and the Amah, Leah, and Dowd walking the
bull and the ram.
Yeah, those of us inside the covenant, of course, know exactly what you're talking about. But anybody else that's not on the inside would not know. So that's a reason for the more complete explanation. Did I miss anything there, Will?
Nope. I think you nailed it.
All right. How about Invisible Man?
Right on the money.
Okay. Let's play it. Let's play it, Kevin.
that Yahowah made. One to lead us out of Babel, one to call us by our name, guiding souls from lies and fog into covenant flame. Dowd walks first with courage, a shepherd's steady pace, not to be adored in vain, but to reveal Yahowah's name. Yada shows the path with the Towrah, pointing the way, turning shadows into sunrise, bringing night to the day. Two luminaries shining on the road back home, kindness in the morning,
Little doggy.
Yeah.
I want to make something clear real quick.
Yes.
Maddie did a lot of the videos too with what he's learning with AI, and a lot of those animations he did, and we worked on them together, and I think it came out really cool.
It did come out really
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And everybody loves working with Matt. Matt is one of those guys, though, that he's a credit sharer. Matt's come a long way. So, and I'm glad you mentioned that and giving him credit, but I don't think Matt would have minded at all. He has navigated to a place where he realized power is in sharing. Power is in caring for other people. He is really, really good at that.
Yeah, he's awesome.
And it's a delight to be around.
And a delight.
One of the things, yeah, he is. And one of the things I did not share is that the two luminaries are also represented by two animals in God's story. One is the ram. He serves as the Passover lamb, but the ram that's the head of the flock is Dowd, and the other is the bull. And the bull is the one that is sacrificed on Taruw'ah, but the bull is the one that's just no nonsense. This is what we're here to accomplish, and nothing is going to stand in the way of us getting it done. So it's two very different personality types. One's far more enduring, the other one is far more ferocious. And that's God's choice, but that's why they're two animals are interspersed in that story. Kevin, it's probably one of the this is the Luminary series, but it's probably the most challenging thing that we have encountered along the way. We've encountered a lot of challenging things. One of the most stark was the realization that because Dowd is our Savior, in addition to being the Son of God, the Messiah, and returning King, that he's the one who fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Bakurim in 33 CE, that Jesus is nothing but a product of identity theft. He is a complete and utter fraud. And that's pretty extraordinary to take that position, but it's irrefutable if you know God's testimony. That's pretty bold. It's also pretty bold to recognize all the prophecies regarding what we're doing now. Of the Bashar, the herald, the Choder, and everything that's related to the Choder, the Nakry, the Adamah Parah. But I think beyond all of that, the realization that God began with some souls that he trusted, that he liked. They weren't perfect. They weren't supposed to be. But in the end, they were committed. They were devoted. They were steadfast. They ultimately listened, learned, responded, and stayed the course. And because he had so much on the line, that so much that needed to be accomplished, that God redeployed some of those souls, and two in particular, three total, when you're counting the Amah. They've got 6 to 8 deployments. What was your reaction, Kevin, when you heard that?
It was tough. Once again, I'll go on record as saying that I have no problem with the El Dowd and the My Dowd and the Gabrielle, because those are quick in and outs, right? We're there, we do a job. Man, a whole lifetime on Earth building an ark, that is some commitment. That is some serious. So I'm just glad it's you and not me. Let me put it that way, okay? Because
you don't want I tell you what, you don't want to volunteer for this job. I don't recall volunteering for this job, as a matter of fact. But no, it's a tough damn job. Yeah. And there is no time you're doing this job that you're popular.
Right.
In fact, you're hated most of the time when you're doing this.
Never well received.
You've been talking about Yahowah coming back as possibly, we know Yahowah comes back as Yahowah, right? But also possibly being, Yirmiyah.
I think that Yahowah is the only. Clearly, there was a predecessor to Yirmiyah. God makes that very clear. And the most likely predecessor, if you look at the time and personality, would be Yahowah. But I don't think Eliah's first experience was his first go around either. I mean, he's the most logical person as Samson. I don't think Moshe was that. I don't think God went all in with Moshe. at that most critical time either. I think that Moshe's soul was Joseph's, and that he got his training and earned his stripes as Joseph. So, yeah, there are some of those lives that are harder than others. I think that there is an in and out, although it's probably a decade, with Ethan Hajraki.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't come in as a kid. He comes in probably at 70 years old, certainly 60, but probably 70 years old, because Dowd would have been 60. So and he's a father figure, so he's at least 70, and probably leaves at 80 or 85. That was short, but yeah, man, that was the toughest thing of all to overcome. You were dealing with a very perturbed man, very set in his ways, exceedingly egotistical, having trouble with alcohol, having trouble with power, having trouble with women, and to straighten that out, that was quite a job. I think the toughest was actually coming back as Boaz and Ruth, particularly after that idyllic life in Bethlehem. I mean, that was that whole story. Gosh, and I'm probably only a couple of days now from being able to translate it, but that is really a cool story. And having had that life, and then you're redeployed as husband and wife, and as Boaz and Ruth again to deliver the kinsman redeemer, but this time you're delivering him to be crucified and then to go into hell. And God picked at least the father figure of that man that's not capable of leaving him. In other words, Dowd wasn't crucified alone.
No.
He didn't go into hell alone.
Right.
And his mother endured a great deal at that as well. That was easily the toughest of all. But you're right. A 930-year life. Now 350 of it were after the flood, and 500 years of it were before it. And he did have help with his three sons and his wife and three other wives of his sons. But that was a long go. I mean, it was specifically designed to be a long go. And we're going to go through it all. And there are a lot of interesting questions. But it's also emphatic that God says over and over again, He is the Bashar, He is the Adamah, and so it's a really fascinating story. So your feeling was that you didn't have a problem with a soul, multiple souls being reused by God, since they were only deployed linearly in the timeline. So there's no going back in time. There's no time traveling at all. It's just we got a mess right now. We need to resolve this mess. I got my fixer. Go in and fix it. And a willingness to do that. Your only issue was you wouldn't have wanted to have had that responsibility, particularly as Noach. That you're a builder. You know what it's like to cut down trees and to build something. That was a tough go.
I have a mill. I have cut down trees. I have milled my own lumber, and I trust. Yeah, that is not something I want to be doing for 500 years. Just saying.
I don't think he did it for that long, but certainly you don't have a tougher job. That was, physical, for a physical labor point of view. That was a tough job.
Yeah, yeah.
I think he had 500 or 550 years to gather materials, and then his sons were born to actually help build for 98 years. Well, maybe 88. They had to be maybe 10 years old to start or something. But
yes,
when you're a baby, you're not going to be hammering.
No, that more babysitting duties up to probably at least eight years of old. Back in the day. You're 8 years old, you're expected to be about the family business. So they were probably contributing, but they weren't contributing, sawing logs and hauling trees.
Right. And he didn't have electric motors and anything like everything was hand tools. And I still think Naamah may have been his wife. Naamah was the sister of Tubal-Cain, who was a metallurgist.
Mm-hmm. Could well have been from a
because he had to get tools from
it's
somewhere.
It's a full life.
He had to get tools from somewhere. He needed saws and other tools and fasteners.
Metallurgy was really important.
Hammers,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And axes, hammers.
Yeah. So you're a pretty factual guy. You like to check the dates of everything and see if there's anything that would preclude a conclusion from being legit. What was your impression when we talked about the fact that the luminaries is the first prophecy, because God's going to follow their lives all the way through the story from beginning to end?
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't say bara in the fourth day. Bara is create. So I still have the question about why don't you remember previous lives, I guess. You and Leah kind of explained that, I guess a couple months ago when I brought that up.
Yeah.
I would say that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I don't want to see.
I would say that the pushback there would be that the information that we get from Yada is sort of, it's not really beyond intellect, but it almost seems more like the way you're able to put things together, Yada. It almost seems more like memory than intellect. And not that it doesn't take a lot of intellect, but the information that you're able to glean, I have to believe that all these prior lives are coming to bear in some way, and they're almost memories. You kind of are remembering what it's like because you spent a lot of time in Shamaim and you spent a lot of time on the earth. So to think that wouldn't permeate what you're doing right now, I think it really does. And I think for me, that explains a lot, because otherwise your intellect is really hard to grapple and get your arms around otherwise.
Well, when I was preparing the material that I thought we would be talking about today, because I have a lot of respect for Kevin. We spend a lot of time together, and he wanted to do the most interesting closure on Noach. Yeah. It is like you're recalling memories, and to talk about the intersection of the sleeping, the wine, the clothing, the whole story of how that story plays out 4 more times. Yeah, it's like you're living. It's like you're there. And then when you're pursuing, for example, the 2 fellows that and Mike, we talked about this, that accompanied Abraham and Ishak to Moreh. Mm-hmm. There is something in there that just tells you, I know who these are. I was there. I know this story. Yeah. And then you find that in one sentence, there are 8 specific affirmations that your recollection is correct. So I went and translated it today. There's 8 affirmations that is true. And it's the same thing when I was dealing now with the 2 individuals that accompany Yahowah when they meet with Abraham and Sarah and have the cheeseburgers, that story, and she laughs, and then the 2 fellows go down to take care of Sodom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And a milkshake.
Everything. That's right, Kurt. Everything in that story, every detail of that story is exactly the same story. And I'm sitting here saying, this is actually Noach and Shem that are those 2 other individuals, and Noach and Shem are the 2 luminaries. They are Yada and Dowd, and that's who's accompanying. And you're reading this, and every word is a picture that says, "Yep, I put it all there because I knew you'd find it. I knew you'd remember. I knew you'd find it." And I know that the things that are being presented here, and now there's upwards of 10,000 of them in the Yahowah series. Nobody comes up with 10,000 unheralded insights and demonstrates them to be true just because they're reading something and they're a little smarter than the other people that have read it. That just does not happen.
No, and the insights that you're able to paint portraits of, for example, Adam in the garden was probably a little bit lazy, a little bit fat and happy. And so you're able to do that with Dowd when Dowd ran into trouble with women and alcohol, and he simply wasn't responding, and this was not looking too good. I mean, there's just things that are not, I couldn't possibly ever have pulled that out intellectually. It's just far deeper than that. And for me, that when you got into being reinserted, that for me was an aha moment. It was like, oh, that's how they're doing it.
That's it. That's how it works.
What they're doing.
Yeah, it was the most reassuring thing to me at the end is just say, oh, now I get it. That's how it all works.
Yeah.
It was another experience today. When I read the story of Ruth and Boaz in Hebrew the first time, and it's Leah sitting across from me, and she says, you know, we need to do this and do it together. And we did. And when I read that she came to him as she knew he was going to be intoxicated because he had partied with his team, fulfilling the second harvest would have been Shabuw'ah, and that he would have just crashed right there with everybody else he had been working with on the threshing floor. And he'd had plenty to drink, having a good time. And that her first line to him was so incongruous with everything. Talking about covering herself. She's at his feet, covering herself with his cloak. And when you're sitting there, okay, there's a reason for this. I have seen this before. I know this story. And it took me, and I didn't have the chance to translate it, but I knew that if I went back to the story of Noach, which I would start at the beginning because I wanted to know the whole story, and whether my sense was right that Chanowk was Noach, but I knew how that story ended. And it ends with him getting intoxicated. He was partying. It wasn't a good time. And he fell asleep in his tent after having a really fine time. And it talks about covering him.
But what did Ham do? What did Ham do in that story, though?
Yeah, it's Cham. It's Cham, which is really interesting because he appears on the story of the two individuals that when it's Noach and Shem that join Yahowah in visiting Abraham and Sarah, both Cham, Cham, and Yepheth are both there. Their names appear in the introductory statement about that event. Now they're not there. It's just what God is saying. Yeah, you're right. This is who these people are, and I just thought I would throw in their names into the text so that you'd notice it and say, "Yep, okay, now it's really clear." That's the beauty of the whole story, and I spent a lot of time talking about it today as I was writing about it. Cham actually does nothing. He does nothing. He looks. That's it.
That's it.
He does nothing. He does nothing else. He does not go inside. He doesn't touch him. He does nothing. And that's why it was so interesting that when Noach awoke, the first word out of his mouth was Yada. But he could not have known. So why was the first word out of his mouth Yada? Because he was asleep. He was really, really sleeping because he had laid one on the night before. And nothing wrong with what he did. Nothing wrong with sleeping naked. Nothing wrong with having a good time. Nothing wrong with he made the wine and drinking the wine. And he was celebrating. Boy, you work as he did on that Teba. Damn right he has a right to celebrate. But Cham did nothing except he is a bit lippy. It doesn't say what he said other than he was very conspicuous in his conversation with his brothers. Didn't say what he said. Didn't even say, and clearly he did not actually do anything. So then you have to say, all right, you have one of the great stories ever told. And now you've uncovered 50 profoundly interesting insights about this story. Why is it concluding with this? Why, after all of this time with Noach, he hasn't said peep? He hadn't said one word. And we don't find anything from him until he talks about this incident where he was seen, but nothing happened. And so I was drawn to it because I began in the whole story days ago because I was drawn to it because I knew I was going to translate Ruth. And I knew that I had to have an answer as to why Ruth said what she did when she approached Boaz on that threshing floor when he was intoxicated and asleep about covering him. And it is really interesting that it appears like that. And you've got to say, well, why am I hearing this story? And it turns out every aspect of that story is prophetic. And it's all designed to tie these individuals together. Noach and Shem, Ruth and Boaz. When the Amah meets with Dowd, he's drunk. He's been sleeping during the day, hasn't he? Mm-hmm. He has been naked, but his big issue was he saw a woman in her home naked. And she tries to resolve those issues with him. It's the same story. And so it's God's way of saying, I'm going to give you a host of clues so you can tie all of this together because I want these individuals connected. I want this story connected. I want you to understand the full cloth of what I am sharing with you. And, it goes on to have some very specific prophecies of what's going to happen, who Shem is. He's the blessed one of Yah. He's the name of names. And then who Yepheth is, and he's just open and pliable and gullible. And what you find is that God says that through Noach, that he's going to live in the tents of Shem. And he is a lightweight. I mean, the best way you could say it, his name means he's a lightweight. Well, do you know somebody that's going to be a lightweight? Not going to have a lot going for them? Their only claim to fame is they're not overly indoctrinated in religion and politics, who are going to abide in what would be considered tents, camping out with Shem, who is Dowd. Are you aware of a story that might put you in that direction? Anybody have a guess? Yepheth is the mortal remnant of Yasha'yah that comes into Jerusalem as an empty slate. That Noach, as the Adamah Parah, purges, so they can enter the tents of Shem, who is Dowd, and begin again. Now, so
wait a minute,
who
you mean
is
Joseph like Joseph?
No,
Yes.
Yepheth. It's based upon the Hebrew verb to be open and gullible and easily persuaded. Not Joseph. Yepheth is the proper pronunciation of the second born of Noach. Now, Cham. Actually, third born of Noach. Cham, which is, everybody pronounces it as ham, but it's a C-H-A-M. Yeah, it means hot. So, who's he? We're told 3 different times, because of this narrative with Noach, that he's going to be the servant of servants and that he is going to serve his brothers. So who is he? What's God talking about? What's the prophecy? He represents Canaan, by the way. We're told 3 times he represents Canaan.
Right.
He is the Goyim that are brought into Jerusalem to serve Yisrael during the millennial celebration of Sukah. the whole story comes together. You're told who the players are and how they're going to interact, all because of this episode of Noach being naked in his tent after having party-hardied with a little wine, and how Shem manages to get him recovered, where we have a whole story about his Shechem, his back. And then as you turn to guess who, the reappearance of these fellas as they go up or go to Mount Moreh with Abraham and Yishak. It begins with Shechem. Ties right back to the shoulder. And then where Shechem actually means early in the morning and to shoulder burdens. And then you've got a Bakar. You know who a Bakar is? He's a bull. And then the story, when it talks about who the young man is, which would be the Katan from God's point of view. That's what he's always refers to as the lesser luminaries, the younger one. He's Katan. And he introduces him using terms that means he's a little withered and shriveled. He's still got a roar, trembles a bit. This is last year. He's 930 years old. You got to give the guy a break. But it describes exactly who he is and how old he is and why he is there. So I'll share it because we'll get to it. This is what Kevin wanted me to talk about, so I'm doing a teaser on it, Kevin, so I'm not completely ignoring your request.
Right.
But all of those details are in that story. And it was about a month or so ago, Mike, that you said, you're onto something with this thing about it being Noach and Shem that were the two that accompanied Abraham and Yishak to Mount Moreh. And I told you I needed to spend the time to really dig into it and translate it carefully before I affirmed it. But my memory told me it was right. And now I've gone through the words, and it is.
How did you define Yepheth? So
it means
Shem,
to
Cham, and
it's from the verb is preceded with a yod, meaning my, but it means my open one, my naive one, easily persuaded. You have to look at the verbal root. You can't find the verbal root, of course, next to the word because it's in a different place in the lexicon. Because
it's H6601.
Yeah.
Panah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it means to open.
Yeah,
so,
I sent you a copy of it, so you'll be able to read it.
Okay, it's in the one you sent today.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay, all right.
Highlighted in red where it begins. Yep.
Yeah.
It's such an eye opener, and I just didn't want to start there tonight because there are so many marvelous remembrances to cite Will. There's so many marvelous remembrances that are part of that story, and how that story weaves into the story of Ruth and Boaz and of the Amah and Dowd and to Noach and Shem and then to the ultimate prophecy in the end. That's who they are. That's their story, and then how they reappear.
Craig,
So, Mariah, Russell, what were your thoughts? That was, you hadn't been covenant very long, and we're laying this on you, and then it's pretty extreme. It tells you that God's got quite a plan, and that not anybody had ever been able to figure it out. You know, how is it to be part of a group of people all trying to know Yahweh better and communicate with one another and help others get to know him. And all of a sudden you hear something that just sounds so amazing that these people are the same people and they've been redeployed.
Yeah, Mariah's given it away a little bit by laughing because I think it was February 27th, the first Shabbat show, family show. And that's when I believe Adam was Dowd And then everything from there was the deployments of you throughout. And so, yeah, it was it was surprising. So there was a lot to ingest there. And then the more I've learned, the more it makes sense. But at first I didn't know enough for it to make sense. So
it originally, what I even said, once we figured out the last word picture, once we went there, and the moment I read and started dealing with the last word picture, the gig was up for me. Everything fell in place. I said, this is what God is saying. These are who these people are. And so it was just, and I couldn't talk much about it, but I knew it. And it began for me with Chanowk. I had to go all the way back to Chanowk and say, that's okay, I know who that is. And then I said, oh, I know who Adam is. And it's been ever since that. And what I said is that at that point, we had to be off of social media, because this is not something that somebody who doesn't have a knowledge base is going to be able to process. You can't deal with what we're dealing with now unless you know who Yahweh is, and you know who these people are, and you know what his story is, and you know what the pinch points were throughout history where it was almost over, where it came really close to being over, and how God resolved that with the team of people that he likes working with. If you know his story, it's stunningly reaffirming. If you don't know his story, it's just going to completely fry your circuits. And so that's when I said, I'm just so glad that it just so happened that Joe was able to make our website a reflection of social media, of X and Facebook without all the trash, and that we could actually have members that sign up and can communicate with one another, and we can post away and talk about these things in a family environment and reinforce one another. And I don't think this works on social media. I don't. The exposure, I wouldn't share it, because the exposure wouldn't be worth it. It'd be way too harsh by people who just don't know any better. And the last thing you want to do is to have to be explaining this to people who are never going to understand anyway.
Right.
Over and over and over.
I don't want to.
Yeah, and my sense is that if you're open to God's plan, his story, his people, and you come to understand he's not looking for perfection, but there are times where things got really rough. And it's all real and very raw. And if you know who he is, how he interacts, how he has chosen, that he is never going to overpower us and intervene directly, work through people of his choosing, the whole story then falls in together. And it's so I think, Will, you are correct. It's what I have been sensing every day for these last few weeks, and particularly today, is I know this story.
Sure.
I live this story. You know it before you even see the words. Then when you see the words, you just laugh. At one point, I said, okay, God, that might have been too clever there.
These things are confirming your memories.
You may have pushed the clever scale there. But yet, when I translated it in the stuff on Noach, the second volume of Yahowah, never gone back to it really at any material degree. And so there's no way I could have recognized it 20 years ago.
May I make a comment, Craig?
Yes, please. The Invisible Man.
Invisible Man. Yeah. From Bereshit onward, from the initial description of the Ma'or, the Gadol Ma'or and the Katan Ma'or, it's the tapestry that Yah has set forth in his enduring testimony. It shows the complementarity and the dependence between you, or I should say, you and Dowd, and then the complementarity between Ruth and Boaz, it basically is like the DNA that repeats itself and recurs throughout the testimony, story after story after story after story.
Yeah, personality doesn't change. They are the exact same personality all the way through. Same attitudes, same aptitudes. And what's really interesting is that Dowd, who was firstborn as Adam, he is the key to the whole story. God favors him, loves him more than anyone. His son is volatile, however. His son is sometimes too emotional for his own good. And he really has a tendency to go offline. And I think God loves the rascally rogue that he is. I do. I mean, I find that, I think it's an exceedingly endearing personality, because the man is tough. He is willing to go fight any foe. He's a great lover. He's a great songwriter. He is loyal as they come. He's really articulate. He's a dashing fellow. You know, not everybody that can put on an ephod and strip down naked and you're king and you're going to dance while the Aaron of the Bereth is being brought into Jerusalem, and then you're going to unleash some one-liners on your cantankerous wife. I mean, man has some, some gotcha in him. And so I love him, but I'm going to tell you, he has a tendency to go offline on occasion. And if there's anybody that needed support, it's Dowd.
Well, it provided the fertile ground for Ruth and Boaz to perform the most significant and important therapeutic intervention in the history of humankind.
Yeah, and of course that wasn't their first.
No,
they were married back in the Chanowk days, and the unnamed wife of the Tabah is Ruth. She's Noach's wife. Now I know that, Mike, you've got a different name for her, and that's fine. I mean, it doesn't matter what her name is. I'm just telling you the personality is going to be through all of this. I've had the same wife.
Could Naamah be Amah?
Yeah.
There's no reason for Naamah's name to be mentioned in Genesis. Let's see, like 4:20.
Yeah.
It's in the 4th chapter when it gives.
Yeah, I
Naamah
would
was
tell you,
the sister of Tubal-Cain.
Yeah.
There's no reason to mention her if
correct.
She doesn't.
Why mention her unless she's there for a reason? That has been the driver for so many of our discoveries. I'm saying, you read that Dowd was lethargic. He was sleeping during the day. He was drinking too much. And I said, where did I see that personality before? Or you see the covers uncovered on Noach, and the covering were mentioned with Ruth and Boaz. You have to say, why is this here? Why did God tell us this? And it just can't be a throwaway line. There's always a reason. And Naamah may be the reason that she's mentioned, because that's what Noach's going to need. He needs a metallurgist.
Yeah.
He needs somebody as a wife that's a lot more than a sit-at-home mom. I'm going to keep the kettle full of victuals for you when you come home, so long as you bring home some rabbits. I guess you can't bring home rabbits, but nonetheless. I think
again,
that's
the 89th Mizmor is by far, the most significant piece of literature
it is
ever composed.
Changed the world.
It basically, along with the intervention by Ruth, basically saves the remnant, which none of us would be here without it. And
he doesn't fulfill Pesach, Matzah, and Makodim without that intervention.
Absolutely not. And to just jump ahead, and I know we've discussed this and you've mentioned it in the podcasts, that as we come upon the end of as we get to the latter part of the story, the fulfillment of Shabuw'ah and then Taruw'ah, when the greater remnant, the greater Ma'or gets so angry and outraged when the Adamah Parah is sacrificed, and the kinsmen, his people, are cheering it on. And rage
that's where we're going in Yasha'yah 30. That's where we're headed. And this Yasha'yah 30. Dowd is there's several places where Dowd gets flat out mad, and this is one of them. He is absolutely beside himself that his father, the man who stuck with him all the way and restored his reputation in the end. And, he understands the sacrifice we had talked about that was going to happen. He has no problem with the sacrifice. He had any problem with the sacrifice even being brutal. His problem is, after all that we have said, all that we have done together, for the majority of his people to be cheering Rahab against the sacrifice that I'm making, it just absolutely irritates him to the point that he is inflamed, enraged. Our relationship isn't strictly arm's length. We aren't just casual friends. Our lives are deeply enmeshed. There is, there's great love, and it's so interesting that because Dowd was the firstborn, that his father is called the Katan, the younger one, but Chanowk came next, and so that soul is not as old as Adam's soul and Dowd's soul, and it makes for a beautiful story, and it keeps the right perspective, because the man who supports Dowd to make him able to be who he is a distant second fiddle to Dowd, and that's the way that God wants the story told, and it's the way it plays out all the way through.
Just you define the term Adamah Parah, what it means in its raw, basic terms. Man who sacrifices himself.
Right. Yeah, it's the bull in the ram's head as the Aleph, and then it's got the Daleth Mem, which is blood. And it is both the ram who shed his blood on Pesach and the bull that sheds his blood on Taruw'ah. And this bull and ram from the first letter of Adam that sheds his blood, dam, opening the doorway to cleansing waters. He's a man. That's what Adamah adds at the end. Bloody red man of the earth. So when God chooses a name, and Adamah is used everywhere to describe this, it's a very important prophetic term.
I'll just conclude by saying Dowd has every right to be enraged because of his dad, who went to hell and back with him.
Yeah,
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, we did. And I don't know where it says that Boaz was crucified alongside Dowd, or where it says that Boaz went into Sheol with Dowd. But I know Yahowah really well. And I know Boaz really well. And I know it's not in either one of our nature to allow either of those things to happen alone to our son. So I know that I'm not even looking for it because I know it's there, but we're going to find it one day. But even if we don't find it, that's okay. I know it. It's how we're made. It's who we are. It's what we would do. It's what Yahowah would do. It's what Yahowah wanted. And it also takes into consideration that our son does not do well on his own. And he was not made to do well on his own. And what does God say? It's not good for Adam to be alone. He was not designed to do well on his own. And I think that, Cara, okay, I guess you're not biting the cables. See Cara underneath the table. She's got a yak that she's trying to play with. But it's a very important point that Dowd was not designed to be on his own. And that's okay. That's what God is trying to say is my firstborn, the one that I've chosen, that I love the most, I never designed him to function on his own. And so that's the whole story of why our lives have been together for all of this time. I think that's profound in and of itself. All right, I want to share with you a little of Yasha'yah 30. We'll pick it up from about where we were, and please chime in if you've got a question or a thought. We're beginning with Yasha'yah 30:19. It reads, "For the people of the family, those who are related as kin, among the signs that are posted along the way should be Zion, dwelling in Jerusalem, which is the source of guidance on reconciliation. God says, you're going to cry. You're going to weep. Now, he is not telling you that you're going to cry and you're weep because you're sad. I don't know. I can speak of me. I'm not a very emotional guy. I'm, that we all have, kind of a range of emotion to intellect, reason to rage, if you will. My emotional coefficient is fairly low. I have a lot of empathy, but it's just that I'm driven by reason. But I can tell you that when I see things that are really joyful, I'll tear up. Some of these songs and some of the imagery in them and the lyrics in them and the melodies, and they're joyful, they're uplifting. And I'll tear up. There are times when I'll translate something that is so profoundly wonderful, it'll grab me that way. And God has actually said on the most glorious moment of all, when he is returning with Dowd, that those who are witnessing this are going to mourn the way you would mourn for a firstborn. The one that you cry for your great love. And so that's the kind of crying here. And part of it is, God, after all of this, we treated you so badly. Man, your chosen people have been so obnoxious for so long, and we've denied everything, denied your name, created false gods, and plastered over your message to us with your false gods. And we've denied everything associated with your beloved son. We've been really bad. And you're going to cry over that. And how many people are not going to be there and can't enjoy it because they never did come to their senses. And so, I think it's going to be a tearful moment. So Yahowah will be exceedingly charming. It's a term that you don't normally think about. Right. God's going to be charming. He's going to be compassionate to you. I watched a show last night. It was really an interesting show. It's about a music editor that tore Elvis Presley to ribbons for years. He was New York Times, and he was just constantly ripping him apart, saying he had no talent. And he had this great plan that he was going to be on a television show, a live television show. And he was going to pull out O Solo Mio and say, if you're not a fraud, the fraud that I think you are, you could try to sing this. And he knew that the breath control and the notes and that's a song that very, very few people could possibly sing. And he was giving it to him and giving it to the orchestra, spur of the moment. And he pulled it off. He sang the song. Turns out he had very formal training that he never wanted to talk about, because that's not what a rock and roll singer does, is talk about their formal training that his mother provided him. And the most fantastic rendition of the song ever. And the critic got up and said, I owe you an apology. I was flat out wrong. Everything I said about you. I'm the fraud, not you. And even though this man had taken 5 years to just try to destroy Elvis Presley in the New York Times and to preclude him from having a career, Elvis Presley turned to him and said, you know, what you've said means a lot to me. Gave him his hand and shook his hand. And what that is Yahowah's reaction to us. We've been really critical of him. And in the end, when we finally return, he's going to say, you know, this means a lot to me. Welcome.
Good.
He's going to be charming and compassionate to you. At the sound of your call, your appeal, proclamation, and summons. You know, it's my eyes are kind of glassy at the moment. They're glassy because Will, you struck something that that indeed I've been sensing. That these are memories.
Yeah.
I even have forward memories.
Yeah.
I know what's going to happen on Towrah. I've seen it. I have
But it gives
forward
us
memories now.
Yeah. It gives us a window into the intimacy of everybody's, Dowd's relationship with Yahowah, your relationship with Yahowah, your relationship with Ruth and Leah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're given this front seat that God just worked with so few people over the years. And
yeah,
it's
true.
just he's showing you how intimate he really is. He doesn't work with a lot of people, and I don't like the word
fun.
faith, but if you look up the Merriam-Webster definition of faith, Yahowah is incredibly faithful. The ups and downs with Dowd, the back and forth, he found you as a reliable guy and just pushed through with what he had. I mean, how can you not trust and rely, knowing that that's his track record? That's his track record.
Yeah, it is, and he is really gracious and charming. It's for all of these years. Every time he has said, I need to speak to you directly now. We're going to have a little chat. I want you to pay attention to what I have to say. 100% of the time, he has referred to me as young man. And I've never understood it. I've just laughed and said, I'm not a young man anymore. You know that. It's always been young man. And then you read, oh yeah, you're the Katan. You're the young man. And you say, okay, but now I know I'm 6,000 years old. Does it still fit? Oh, well, yeah, compared to me, yeah, it still fits. It's fun for him. It's enduring for him. He's having a good time with this. You can see all the clues that were laid out. These that were in the Towrah and written in the Towrah 3,400 years ago, but actually discussed by Yahowah 5,000 years ago. And you're reading it and said, you're really having fun with this, aren't you? This is really, really entertaining for you. I'm sure there's something I'm missing here, but I know I'm picking up enough of these breadcrumbs that, okay, we get it now. And it's a whole one cohesive story. So Yahowah will be exceedingly charming and compassionate to you at the sound of your call, of your appeal, of your proclamation and your summons. As he hears it, he's going to answer and respond to you.
Wow.
That's speaks volumes of him after all we have done to him. And he says, this is all I was really looking for. So yeah, absolutely. I'm so delighted that you're calling to me. I'm so delighted that you're here. And he's just on record saying, I'm going to be charming. I'm not going to hold grudges. I'm just delighted that we're all finally together. So for 6,000 years, our God has pleaded with us to respond to him. And now that the relationship is being restored, he is eagerly responding to us. Shub for shub, after all. It is what we would expect of a loving father, but it's still asking a lot. Now, in the second chapter of Yoel, which we had reviewed previously on Luminaries, we found ourselves dancing in the autumn rains. And one of these days, I'm sure that's going to be part of the lyrics of one of these songs. It's Moreh. Moreh is an outpouring of Torah teaching as the autumn rain, the autumn of our time. And of course, it's Taruw'ah and Kippurim and Sukah are all fulfilled in the autumn. So it is the autumn rains of Torah teaching, and they were broadcast brilliantly through the prophet Yoel. Well, before he wrote of them, so did Yasha'yah. And the word that led us to this whole concept is Moreh. It is a compound of Ma, to ponder the implications of, and Yara. Yara is the source from which teaching and guidance, instruction, and direction flow. Yara, as we know, serves as the actionable root of Torah. That's why Torah doesn't mean law. It means a source of direction and guidance, teaching and instruction. So let's listen as I think the greatest wordsmith to ever serve with Yahowah. Although there's some who are really, really close. So Dowd is impassioned, but Yirmiyah is really intellectual. Yoel is the one that's the sleeper. He is brilliant, but my guy is still Yasha'yah. So Yahowah gave to you the bread of unfavorable circumstances and the water of embittered rebellion, Meribah. And yet now, your teacher of Torah, of guidance and instruction, your source of education on the Torah, to contemplate an outpouring of autumn rain. He's no longer going to be a secret. He's not hidden in the wings anymore. He is not pushed off into the corner any longer. Your eyes will be able to see your teacher and guide offering this outpouring of directions regarding the Torah. Yasha'yah, Isaiah 30:20. How about that for a word picture?
Wow.
Yeah, it's just so amazing, the ability to turn a phrase. Don't you think there, my friend?
That's beyond comprehension. Yeah,
Beyond beautiful.
He just basically put you on center stage, and basically here he is.
I didn't really see it as that. What I mostly see it as is that long ordeal of bitterness toward Yahowah. It's over. It's all washed clean. And it's washed clean with his Torah. And it's just as he always has. He always picks somebody that's going to share what he wants to say. And this is washed clean because he found somebody that's passionate about his Torah that's going to share it with his people. At this point, Yasha'yah has actually said that even in this moment of moments, we're all overshadowed by Yahowah. We finally reach a point where God just can't be hidden anymore. He's going to be available, not for us to see in his fullness. We'll see that when we go to Shamayim. But here on earth, he's still going to be, by the time we come to Kippurim and then into Sukah. I think on Kippurim, he's going to be in the background. Actually, I think he's going to position Dowd as far more prominent than himself. But by the time we reach Sukah, I think he's going to relax and be really extraordinary in terms of our appreciation of him. So nothing is more soothing to our soul than a deluge of Torah teaching, and it comes, well, highly recommended, as you can hear here. Then your ears will hear a word and a message. From after that, in the end, sometime later, of course, without hesitation, additionally for you, to convey this is the way to walk and to travel through life in this, verified by branding and true, going right by choosing to be right. Or when affirmed, turning to the left and it's all covered and wrapped by God. You know, if you look at the tent of the restoring witness and later the house for Yahweh's name, there's a column to the left and a column to the right. The right hand represents Dowd. If you go to the right, you'll be right. But when we listen to the presentation of the naming and the purpose of the column on the left, that is Boaz, one of the very first things that we learn is that Boaz is associated with covering, with wrapping. That's why that whole story of Noach, and they wrapped him, and Boaz, and she wrapped him. And when the Amah is talking to Dowd, she's going to wrap him. That's the same story, and it's actually part of the designation of the two columns on the house for Yahweh's name. And so if you go left, you're going to be wrapped by God. You go to the right, you're going to be right because you're going to be with Dowd. It's all branded and true. It is the way. It is the truth. Now, those who read Yahowah are naturally repulsed by religious items and objects of veneration. Not only do we seek to toss them away, we renounce them as, well, filthy crap. You know, I know that when I listen to so many people and their vocabulary, even on important, I heard Como today, you know, he was doing his own show on YouTube, dropping F-bombs all over the place. Now, I'm not going to drop an F-bomb on you. I don't use it. But I know that God uses the word shit. And it's filthy shit. That's what religion is. It's filthy shit. And so I'm going to use that word. I hope I'm not offending anyone. No. Mariah says no. I'm clear.
Yeah.
You will deem your gilded idols and your plated silver objects of worship unclean, in addition to your religious garments, your images and icons of gold. You will cast them away as contaminated and rotten seeds. Filthy shit.
Paresh.
You say of them.
You could say Paresh, that's the Hebrew for dung.
Yep. Yep. Filthy shit was tesse. It means disgusting human feces. Discharge. It's actually used to talk about both poop and of menstrual discharge. And that's what God is calling religious objects of veneration. Filthy shit. Yasha'yah, Isaiah 30:22. When we return to Yahweh and we are being dancing in the Towrah, if you will, and the reign of the Towrah, we're going to recognize, every one of us, that everything associated with religion is filthy shit. Then he will provide for a time rain for your seed, which for the benefit of the relationship, you will consistently sow in association with the Adamah, the bloody red man of the earth. And bread of the harvest by the Adamah will be at this time anointed. It's going to be acceptable and satisfying and abundant. The very best to properly nourish, being plentiful and productive in conjunction with olive oil. For an ongoing period of time, he will be the shepherd, grazing, caring for, and protecting your property, as well as all that you have acquired, especially overseeing your bull and your herds upon the vast and verdant pastures for the jubilant and dancing ram. You know, you've always thought of, at least I have, of Yasha'yah being pretty businesslike.
Oh, man.
This isn't businesslike at all.
This is,
He's feeling it. He's celebrating it.
this,
He is now, and yeah, absolutely, right? You got it. He is into the word picture business now. He is loving every moment of this. Jubilant and dancing ram during this day. Overseeing your bull. Your shepherd is going to care for you. You're going to plant the seeds, and the seeds are going to be planted and associated with the Adamah, this bloody red man of the earth that has been so instrumental in the return. And of course, when you talk about bread, where did Dowd come from?
Bethlehem.
Oh, yeah, the house of bread, right?
Yeah.
Where was Boaz, the unofficial mayor?
The same place.
Yeah. He was
Who
the oligarch
fulfilled-
of Bethlehem.
Right. Who fulfilled unyeasted bread? Who's responsible for Shabuw'ah, where you lift up the 2 loaves of bread?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you think there's maybe a connection there with, this is what we're going to be sowing, and we're going to be celebrating the bread for the harvest, and that the bread from the harvest is in association with the Adamah at this time, and that bread now is all going to be anointed. It's all going to be acceptable and satisfying and abundant. You know, I think that the bread we're going to eat, if you like sourdough, and I do, you have sourdough, and the yeast will be absolutely the most delicious you can imagine. And we need to do that so that during that 1 week a year on Chag Matzah, where we go to unyeasted bread, that it's special.
Yeah.
Because if that's all the time, then it's not special. And that doesn't mean you can't eat unyeasted bread when you like. I love it, and so I'll have it regularly. And I loved it dipped in olive oil. But the fact is that it's we're going to celebrate anointed bread, and it's the Adamah who is going to do this, and he is doing his thing for that same guy, that dancing ram. When was the last time we knew we had a dancing ram? Wasn't that when Obed-Edom was helping Dowd bring the ark, the Aaron of the Bereth into Jerusalem, which is the same where all of this is taking place, and we had a dancing Dowd. Yeah.
I got to tell you, Craig, from what Yasha'yah's done, he's gone from transition from being an intellectual powerhouse to waxing eloquently to, feeling it with his liver. I mean,
this is filling with his liver.
This is coming. Yeah. I mean, this is coming from a place that is just beyond. And what's amazing, though, in tying the whole thing together, is that as you complete the mission as the Adamah Parah, Yisrael and Yehudah are reconciled.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, Yasha'yah loves this because he acknowledges he served without any success, without anyone capitalizing on his message for his entire life as a witness. He's the greatest of all the prophets in the sense of what he wrote on behalf of Yahowah, and not a single person. Okay. I hear all the time that, people, even my beloved wife, she says, I don't think anybody has joined the covenant because of my outreach to them. And I think that's probably untrue. But nonetheless, there is, we have really, really devoted, good people who have conveyed this message for a long time and had no one respond to them. And this was Yasha'yah's experience. So we're in good company. If you fit into that mold, that is what most everyone expected, and what happened during their lives. And they were really extraordinary, devoted souls, articulate, brilliant. And so when Yasha'yah says, it's finally coming to fruition, there really is a covenant family.
Yeah.
And the textbook on how to choder them is the book I wrote, and that's my Zeroah, and he's in that wine vat with me. And when it talks about the man from Edom saving many, it's not alone; it's with Yahweh and with Yasha'yah, and he's celebrating it, and that's what he's doing here now.
Yeah.
So the Adamah is going to continue to oversee the family business for a while. The vacation's not going to come as quickly as the Adamah might want, but you're working with Yahweh, and that's fun. But we're gonna sneak in a Shabbat. I'm going to tell you that for sure. But he is the productive bull off after all, so bulls keep her going, and he's the learned bull as the Adamah Parah, and he's going to remain employed for a while as Yahweh's student and teacher while continuing to develop and augment, of course, Yahowah.com. Our website is the home for Yahweh's name. And this is going to include the library of expanding volumes of Yahowah and, of course, what we're doing now, the Yahowah blog, all while he and his foremost associates serve as administrators. You don't get to manage the world, the planet, without a team. And that's part of what happened in the end. The reason we finally got it over the finish line for Yahowah is we came together as a team. That is what it's all about now. That's why, Mariah, when you said I want to give credit to Matt, he created a lot of this, and he's a real delight to work with. That is how we get it done. We share credit. Yahweh was really, really good at it, and he's a good teacher. We can follow his example. So all the while, he and his associates, family members, are all going to serve as administrators over the essential occupations and facilities at this time. Now, I've told everyone here, and I don't know if, and I've written it now, I've gone back and rewritten what I had said. When we are given the measurements of how much gold has been refined in ore for, and we figured out that equates to 1,400 people. And what I said is, well, what if we have 700 and 700, and that's 700 of the mortal remnant of Israel? No, all 1,400 of those are Israelites. And by the way, when we are also dealing with Noach, and there's 8 souls above the ark, I did a lot of research to find out how many humans were alive at that time. The answer is 40 million. 8 to 40 million is 1,600. Right in that same range, 1,400.
40 million with an Neshama?
No.
40 million.
No, everybody with the Neshama. Only 8 people with the Neshama survived. So
no,
just
total
number of people.
You were saying before that.
No, the total number of people. No, total number of people at the time of the flood on the planet would have been 40 million. Because the only people that got killed were people within the Neshama. So it's interesting. Same number, 1,600 versus 1,400. When you're dealing with 8 billion people on the planet, that's a pretty simple number. The reason I disassociate the Goyim from any number like that is that they're coming in, and it's really obvious when you're dealing with what Noach has to say. They're coming in as the workers. It's a really good gig for them. Maybe, it's either you're coming in as a worker or you're dead. So work pretty appealing. The earth is returning to conditions of Eden. Only the nicest people are left. And you're going to be given the same opportunity that exists on the Yobel every 50 years. But God says recompense means I've got to do something here. The Goyim, through Islam and Christianity and Marxism, have been so brutal to my people. I have to have recompense for fairness. So they're going to be the workers. And by the work is not a pejorative. I know it is today. A lot of people don't like to work, but if you don't like to work, you're not going to be part of this anyway, so it doesn't matter. But to run the planet, we can't do that for under a couple of 100,000 people. There's just too much to do. Too many occupations that have to continue for the planet to function. Everything from power generation to sanitation to manufacturing to transportation. You put it all together, and it's a big world out there. It can't be done for less than a few 100,000 workers. So I'm quite hopeful that there is going to be covenant members who have some business acumen and are administrators, because I've been there and done that job. I don't want that job again. But somebody's got to be the boss of bosses for them, and so I'm hopeful that we have a qualified volunteer. Otherwise, we're going to have a business school in addition to Towrah school. So, among other things, we're going to be overseeing the food supply, as we have read, which is going to feature leavened bread. And in this way, when we enter the week of Chag Matzah, it's going to be special and distinct. So when the learned bull will be teaching thousands and enriching 1,000-fold, La Elef, the population within these cities and towns where those working, expending considerable energy and intensity to serve, they're going to do so on behalf of the Adamah, the bloody red man of the earth. And they will be nourished by a mixture of leavened bread, which, to show the way to the benefits of the relationship, will be the result of this foreigner from a distant land who is bringing this together by one spiritually winnowing an implement of separation in the harvest, and by spreading out and separating. Yasha'yah, Isaiah 30:24. Now, I have to do a mea culpa here. Yasha'yah is not an unbiased arbitrator here. Yasha'yah has, I have a bromance for Dowd. I've had it for years. Well, because of the fact Yasha'yah has had such a tough time getting his message across, and finally found somebody that just loves every word that he has to say and has been really bold at delivering it, and it's resonated. Yeah, the Zeroah. So Yasha'yah likes me. And so he's a little overly fanboy. So
he's pro crab.
I know Yahowah pretty well, and nobody gets worked into the point where there's just nothing left of them. So I'm not going to be doing every job here. I appreciate the fact that Yasha'yah is saying, okay, you made a lot of contributions, and you're going to be working with the team, and you're going to help the team go, and that you're my guy. But I realistically, this has to be done because we're family. There got to be many people who step up to get her done, because otherwise you're just not going to manage the earth. But that's basically what he's saying, is that the Adamah, this bloody red man of the earth, is going to be nourishing, and that he's going to be supplying leavened bread, and it's going to bring people together. But he is the foreigner, and Yasha'yah wants that known, and God wants that known. He wants his people. The tree of the knowledge of good and bad, it has to have things that remind Israel of what was not good, for them to appreciate where they are and not to revert. And so they're going to be reminded, you couldn't get it done. And so I brought in this foreigner. He got it done for you. It's going to be humbling for them, and it's designed for that. Not because God wants them to be humble, but sometimes you got to take the edge off, and that's what it does. And he's going to be spiritually winnowing, which means that the job is always stays the same, which is God wants somebody that's going to be willing to make that hard decision. I say that, I'm sorry, but you just don't belong. And to say to others, you need to step up and take more responsibility, or to say to others, this is the way it's done. Nicely done. And so there'll be a great spreading out also, which affirms something that I have thought had to be true. In fact, I've seen it in my mind's eye, is that while there'll be a concentration of Yehudim in Yisrael, for the most part, the whole world is being converted to the conditions of Eden. There'll be some really desolate places that God can have a contrast, but the world's going to be beautiful, and we're going to spread out all over it. And the last thing God wants us to do is all concentrate in one place, because we don't do very well when we are too many of us together. I know I don't, and that's why I moved out of cities. That's why I moved to a little island here in the middle of nowhere. I like it better, and God likes it when we're spread out, and that's what this says. We are going to be spread out. So the characters who brought us to this day are going to continue to be there, and they're going to assure that there will be many more days like this to come. So Yahweh is loyal, as are those who have served him over the millennia. And that is why, even though souls do not carry a genealogical distinction, and although Yisrael is mostly a naming convention, the man in charge in service to the king, his father, is known as Zerah, the foreigner, even to the very end. And this is consistent with Nakry, the observant foreigner. God wants that distinction. He likes that distinction. And he's going to continue with that distinction. And it's not a slur, because it's an observant foreigner. And he's obviously beloved. And but it's important for God to reinforce, this is how we got here. So as we discovered in the closing chapters of Coming Home, Volume 4, Bashar Herald, the next statement is quite a shocker. It starts off with water dancing off the mount and cascading through the surrounding hills. That's a beautiful scene. It obviously seems serene until we consider what will coincide with this picturesque visual display. There will be a horrendously graphic murder. The savage slaying of a single man who will be bludgeoned to death as he is slaughtered by Satan and his minions on Taruw'ah. Now, if you wonder how a foreigner becomes beloved, how a bull pulls at the heartstrings of this remnant, this is how it's done. It is foretelling that Yahweh intends to accomplish this through the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah. To achieve the desired result, God is going to release a torrent of subterranean water beneath the Temple Mount. The burnt offering, in conjunction with the searing flames and the purging ash, will mix with the cleansing waters to purify the mortal remnant who are now gathered in Jerusalem. And so with the fall of one, many are going to rise. They will be empowered and enriched, emancipated and enabled. Their potential for growth will be magnified at this very moment. I'm going to share this with you. It's very powerful. And there will be a divisive outpouring through canals, through watercourses and shafts. bringing forth water on every part of the loftiest and most esteemed mount. Long before we read this, remember I told you I had a vision? I said, this is how it's going to play out. The water is going to erupt from underneath the Temple Mount.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen. It's called divisive because it has to purge, outpouring through canals, through watercourses and shafts, bringing forth water on every part of the loftiest and most esteemed mount, and on all of the elevated hills which are lifted up in the day of the great slaughter, the intentional and exceedingly important slaying, this abundantly violent and vicious murder. With the cutting down and death of the empowering and enabling one who magnifies growth. It is the slaughter of the one to ponder what it means to grow, to become great, to be magnified and empowered. Through this slaughter comes the benefits of the covenant. It is from my to ponder the implications and Gadal, growing and becoming great while being magnified. Yasha'yah, Isaiah 30:25. So no matter how often we are confronted by the graphic nature of Taruw'ah and that sacrifice, it's still hard to grasp what the Adamah Parah will willingly endure to save those who up to this point have been seeking to condemn him. As we know, he is the lesser luminary, also known as the moon, who is cast into this role of being the sacrifice to fulfill the moed in service of the greater luminary, also known as the sun, so that it's possible for him to return. And yet, I didn't initially include this reference because, well, in this luminary series, I went back and added it because it does not use Yarok, which is moon. It does not speak of the Shemesh, which is sun. And yet it addresses the influence of both luminaries at this time. So here in this chapter of Yasha'yah, Isaiah, Yahowah has chosen Labana and Cham to represent these two individuals, the two luminaries. Labana speaks of being purifying with a sparkling white light. And Cham conveys the idea of being inflamed and furious. Even before we consider the implications of using these highly descriptive terms that have little to do with the actual nature of the sun or the moon, we have to retrace our path a bit so that we know why they were chosen and why they're being deployed, why they are responding in this way. So in the previous narratives, we have migrated from the arrival of a Towrah teacher to him becoming a shepherd prior to this exceptionally vicious sacrificial slaughter. This is en route to finding the moon casting a purifying white light as the sun's passions are inflamed with righteous indignation. The implications are that the Adamah Parah is being sacrificed, and as this is occurring to the lesser luminary's illumination, he is going to become especially purifying, an insight which has to be symbolic on this occasion, because on Taruw'ah, guess what? It's a new moon. The moon isn't bright on Taruw'ah. It's the opposite of that. It's the first day of the 7th month. And therefore it occurs on a new moon. Further, since the sun isn't shown shining brightly, but is instead presented anthropomorphically as enraged, as furious over what's happening to the lesser luminary, it behooves us to appreciate why that might be so. And yet, that's only when it begins to get interesting, because the passionate response of the furious luminary is shown Shabbat sevenfold. And it is Shabbat promised for 7 days. He's not getting over this one quickly. This time could represent the 7 Moedim, or it could address a week-long residual effect of Taruw'ah as the great day of Yahowah, as Dowd is still embarrassed and frustrated by his people. And I think that's what it represents. He's really disappointed with all of this, that they would turn on his father. So it's going to be during the day of the herald, and as a result of the slaughter, that the Adamah Parah, as the purifying and whitening lesser luminary, that Yah is going to honor his promise to bandage the destructive fracture that has crippled his family up to this point. The one who is stricken, sacrificed, and slaughtered will contribute to the healing of what has been a traumatizing wound. All the while, my beloved son, Yahweh's firstborn, Dowd, he's furious over how horribly his father is being treated by his own people, those he's striving to mend. And he's already well acquainted with how savage Satan as Rahab will be on Towrah, because, well, I shared that with him during the presentation of the 89th Mizmor 3,000 years ago. That's why that's in that story. The king's issue is over his people's response prior to and during the sacrifice, even with prophecies like this one, throughout God's inspired revelations, even with the expansive library of Yahowah explaining all of this well in advance to it occurring, even with the 40 months of passionate oratory by Leah and Yada leading up to it, pleading with the Israelites from the Temple Mount. The overwhelming majority of Goyim and the Jews that are gathered in Jerusalem will be applauding the murder of the Katan Mayor. They will prefer Satan as Rahab, Donald Trump, the great betrayer, over Yada or Yahowah. And it's going to be infuriating. There just are no good guys here. Even those who will appreciate and benefit from the prophecy are nonplussed over the events that are playing out around them. They aren't here because they have chosen Yahowah or accepted the conditions of the covenant. They haven't done so. That's why they're not here. And they aren't here to observe the moed of Yom Teruah. They don't know anything about it. They're still on Rosh Hashanah time. They're not here to witness the sacrifice of the Adamah Parah because they're looking for a red girly cow. They know nothing of the Katan or the Gadol. They have been brought here because they are only slightly stained. And so the religious and political stench isn't so overwhelming that they're going to reject the bath of water and ash and blood and fire that will be ensuing. Here's the text, and we'll end with this. And it will come to be at this time that the purifying white illumination of the moon will be compared and equated to the light of the sun's passion, which will be inflamed, furious, and enraged, glowing in righteous indignation. Then the light of the vehemently inflamed sun, Cham, will consistently be as promised, sevenfold, the oath that was sworn. The illumination corresponds to the promise of 7 days. In the specific day, Yahowah binds and wraps, bandaging the destructive fracture and the crippling wound of his family and of his people. Then he's going to heal, forever mending and repairing the traumatizing injury, this debilitating contusion, through and by the one being attacked, the one being stricken and wounded and then slaughtered on his behalf. Yasha'yah, Isaiah 30:26. That was a lot to give up and pass to jump ahead and do too much of Noah tonight. That's why we stayed here. It's important for Israel to know just how disappointed their returning Messiah and King, their Savior, is on what's going to happen in Taruw'ah. Of course, I'm sad for my King, my son, but I'm also happy for him. This means he's come of age. It's a tough story to report. It's a tough thing for me to talk about. But this is how it all comes together in the end. God's going to make certain that what he is going to display on the greatest show on earth is going to be memorable. We're going to find that the flame that rises from that altar will be eternal. This is going to be the most visual, unforgettable scene in human history. And it will conclude with a lot of crying, but also great joy. I thought you ought to know how the story ends. And this is really not the end. It's the end of the beginning. From this point on, it's start of happily ever after. And so we will be celebrating from this point on. Sir Scheutz, I'm going to give you the choice. You can pick the song, whether it is Ruth or the that marvelous song that has the floating leaf in it, the one that
Dust to Fire. That's
Fire. Whether it's Ruth or Dust of Fire, or we play Luminaries again, or Mr. Babylon, I'm going to give you your choice on.
Wow.
On going.
Well, if we hadn't had such an emotional moment, I would have went Mr. Babylon. But I'm going to go back to Dust to Fire. It's on your mind. So we have a little teaser that on Tuesday we will be doing something a little special for the vlog on a blog. So get ready for that. And so we'll play Dust to Fire. So
it is truly amazing. You know, when I got to listen to your story again, Kevin. As you did, you were a guest on Mark's show. And, you know, the way that we ended up coming together and getting to know each other after all of this time is really extraordinary. And the trust that we all have placed in you, it's truly amazing. It's really good to be family. So thank you. Yes, it's Dust of Fire is a favorite of mine. I think I look at it as it's a theatrical production, and it is the story of the Amah, but it's also the story of the Adamah Parah. It's Dust and Fire is how all of this comes together to cleanse the adulterous woman, and that is the story of what the Amah is responsible for accomplishing, because she's the one who grooms this woman to be the first bride that Dowd has ever benefited from and respects. So we have a parental responsibility of getting our son the bestest possible wife, and I can assure you she's going to be both bright and beautiful. Yes. And so that is the story of Dust of Fire, and the visuals in this story. Well, I wrote 5 pages of my analysis of the visuals of this story after it. I wrote down every lyric. I didn't copy them. I wrote them all down, listening. And I wrote how every scene of what follows, it sings to my heart, I'll tell you. So please, Dust of Fire, thank you, one and all. It's been a...
Was dust in the dawn, a hush in the reeds, a sparrow beneath the shadow of the Nile of time that had not yet spoken my name. Then I sought Yahowah, like rain on a buried sea, like fire folded into cedar, like the first silver thread of morning breaking the rim of the dark. I heard your name, as a new hears a whistle in the field through windwood and stone. I heard your name, as a mother hears the steps of the one who comes home. I am the Amah. I have no palace, I have no crown, only my open palms. I have no song of my own except the one you placed in my breath. Yahowah, you are the well hidden in a wilderness, the lantern in the hollow of the darkest night, the path of dawn laid across the face of the sea. You are the wild wind that wakes the olive tree, the pulse beneath the vineyard soil, the compassion that bends low to lift the ones the world has broken. I turned from the noise of men, from altars of ash and echoes of hay. Quiet, your name was a thunderclap alone. It was also the shelter after the storm. Yahowah, Yahowah. Yahowah, Yahowah. I am yours to remember. Write your name upon my brow, on the inside of my waiting heart, like a blue flower in the spring. Let me be the small song that rises from the clay when your breath moves through it and gives it life. Yahowah, Yahowah, you are the morning in the throat of the dark. You are the fire beyond the veil of the hills. You are the lamp at the feet of those who are beloved. I respond with open hands. Here